Alright, what's good? It's Lax. I'm a little sick right now, so I might sound a little congested, but I didn't want to live record my games anymore because unfortunately people were stealing my teams EV for EV by pausing the videos at the right moments and just copying stat spreads. I mean, I can't blame them. That's kind of on me. And I realized I don't really want to sabotage my SEL team, so instead we're going to do these little post game kind of analysis and try to figure out like what went good, what went wrong, lead matchup, that kind of stuff. So this is round two of OLT in playoffs. That means it's top eight players going for that one trophy, that little pink trophy, and my opponent was Levers. This guy is kind of an up and comer, new gen player. People probably haven't heard of him before this tournament, but he qualified for OLT, I think, relatively easy. He knows how to like take really good teams, what's good in this meta, what works out, and I think that's obviously why he reached this point of top eight out of what 32 players or something like that. So when picking my team, I decided I just want to pick two solid teams that can handle most things, and I picked my teammate Stormzone's team because he already played, and it has a bunch of stuff like Assault Vest Slow King, Court Change Cinderace for like Webs Cheese, uh, Encore Valiant with Destiny Bond, Ogre Pond with Encore as well, and then your trusty King Gambit. So I thought this was a great team to lead off, and lucky for me, he brought Webs. So when you look at the lead matchup, you're like, okay, obviously he's leading Rabambi. That's like, gotta get Webs up. That's priority. It affects Ogre Pond. It affects Valiant. Might even affect King Gambit for his own Valiant or for his own King Gambit. So that seemed obvious. So I try to plan around that. What's the best thing I could lead here without sabotaging the rest of the game? And I don't really have a great lead for that because everything's getting stun spored, besides Gliscor if it's already toxic. So I go Slowking, it gets stun spore, and that might cause troubles with Manaphy or Goldango later because I have Flamethrower on Slowking, and Slowking plays a pivotal role as you guys will see. I can't go Cinderace because he's just going to stun spore that, and then I lose my fast court change to get rid of those webs. And I can't lead Ogre Pond because I want the HP for Manaphy to encore and prevent any shenanigans. So I decide on Gliscor as my lead. He actually, I think, goes for a different thought process. Like, he doesn't want to get up webs because he doesn't want me to just change that shit back over. So, he leads Goldango, which makes sense. I can't really touch him with my Gliscor. I'm a Fizz-Def set, so I just hard switch into Cinderace, get that free Pyro Ball off, and one-shot it. That was a pretty good start for me. At this point, I have to let something get stun spored, and I'm thinking the most useless thing on my team is Gliscor because he could be a Balloon Gambit set or like a Lumberry like Terra, and then that would just completely demolish and make Gliscor useless. And also he has Ice Spinner on both Great Tusk and Dragonite, so I'm thinking, okay, Gliscor is pretty useless. I'm just gonna try to get a spike up, maybe break this thing's sash. So I go for a Toxic here. Luckily it connects onto the Great Tusk. And at this point, I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just stall it for a little bit, maybe put in range or something. I go for Protect, get paralyzed, that's totally fine. I go for it again, get paralyzed. It doesn't honestly matter. At this point, I'm pretty much forced to go Valiant. I guess if the pairs mattered, I could have gone Ogre Pawn instead and put myself in a slightly better position. Because here I am forced to waste my boosted energy. Well, that's fine. I'm just going to go for a Moonblast. And honestly, I'm really glad he went Rabambi here. I think this makes things a lot easier for me to just have that killed. He does go Manaphy here. And I decide to switch out. Excuse me. I decide to switch out because I don't want this to take a Scald because I could use it for a Valiant or a King Gambit later on, so I want HP on it. So I just hard switch to my Ogre Pawn. I mean, he makes a good play. He doubles out with Dragonite. I'm like, okay, this thing is actually kind of a big threat. I don't really have a lot of answers to it, especially now that my booster's gone. So I'm just gonna knock it and hope he's not the Terra Fly set that's been running around. The Terra Blast Physical Dragonite. It's a really strong stab for it. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I have to encore it. I have to hope it locks into something manageable, maybe like a Dragon Claw or like an E-Speed, and then I can handle with King Gambit or Valiant, etc. So he goes for E-Speed, and I go for Encore. I'm like, okay, great. I keep HP on this for Manaphy. I instantly go King Gambit. If he doubled out here, it actually could have been a little treacherous maybe, because if he went to his own Great Tusk or like his low kick King Gambit, if he has it, then I'm not in a great spot. But luckily he just goes for E-Speed, so I just go for free attack. He goes to his King Gambit. I spawn thinking he's low kick. Alright, I'm not gonna risk that. So I'm just gonna switch to Valiant because he's either clicking low kick or he's clicking Swords Dance in my head. If he did click Iron Head here, it was actually really bad, so this was kind of risky play. And at this point, I'm feeling pretty ahead, so I don't want to make any risks. I go for Encore. He goes Manaphy, that's fine. I go Ogre Pawn. He goes back to D Knight. At this point, I'm like, okay, I just want this thing dead. This thing is causing issues, and I can lure it out with Terrafly on Slowking. So I just hit it without any concerns. Go for Ice Beam. I think I live a +1 Ice Spinner anyways. So getting rid of that is a big deal for me. He goes Manaphy. I'm not playing around, so I just go Ogre Pawn. And the rest of the game is kind of clockwork. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to pretend I Will-O-Wisp, and then I'm just going to fire away a Fireball. Goes Great Tusk, kills it. Okay, for U-turn, Slowking, gonna Flamethrower it. Okay, back to Ogre Pawn. I go to Ogre Pawn on Manaphy every time because I don't want it to get ahead of itself and get away with something crazy. So at this point, King Gambit gets knocked. Sack Cinderace, go to my own King Gambit. He revealed Iron Head and Kowtow, so I'm just gonna trade damage, kill that. Ogre Pawn, Encore, rest is history. So that's kind of how you handle cheese with this kind of team. They're threatened by court change, so they don't really go for the webs. Alright, on to the next replay. So I decided to bring Stall here, which is I saw this team kind of floating around. A lot of people have been spamming a variation of it, maybe Cresselia over Skeledirge. Professor Xavier, he actually used the Skeledirge version, and I thought that made a lot of sense for the HOs running around because Skeledirge, in particular, does a great job of handling a Pokemon like Iron Moth. So, based off lead, I think he's used this team before, and I've actually scouted him, so I know the sets. He's got like Ice Spinner on this, Low Kick on King Gambit, Specs on Goldango, so I have a gameplay set in mind. I just go for Protect, don't want to risk any knock stuff. I know his team is very weak to spikes because he has lefties King Gambit and the Ogre Pawn, which can't hold boots. So my game plan here is pretty simple. I'm just gonna get up some spikes. I'm gonna deal with that. Spike all the way up. Go to Mandibuzz and Ogre Pawn. Force it out. Knock this off. It's not the most enticing gameplay, so I'll skip until like any relevant turns happen. So this is a pretty big turn. I know he specs Goldango, and it's either my Lodic takes the trick because it's not the most useful Pokemon I have right now, or I eat a spec Shadow Ball for free because it's like almost max special defense. So Milo does end up eating it, and I play kind of greedy here. I just go for a Specs Ice Beam because I expected the Ogre Pawn to come in on a Scald. I don't think he would take it for free, but he does, which is fine. So I just double Gliscor because I'm Spadef and I should be able to eat some hits. I go for some spikes. Maybe if you try to wish Ogre Pawn up, I get a Greedy Toxic. Not the best play. I probably should have just spiked again. I take a little extra damage with Gliscor here, which actually does matter because it means I can't switch into Goldango as frequently. So here, at this point, I'm just trying to get some knocks off. I knock the Goldango, which means he can probably trick again. He goes my I go my Lodic. I go for a Scald. If I burn here, pull Revenges, great. I don't, which is fine. So I'm kind of forced into tearing my Skeledirge here. The thing about Terra Skeledirge is that it handles Dragonite and King Gambit depending on the sets, and it can one-shot this. And if he decides to stay in and trick me to get the boots back, he's gonna die. So I either take the Shadow Ball or he dies, and that's fine. That works out pretty well for me. He goes back to Ogre Pawn. I go Mandibuzz. Here I get a little greedy. I go for a knockoff, which in hindsight is a pretty bad play because he needs to do something to gain back some kind of traction. So I probably should just click Final Play, but that's fine. So my Mandibuzz gets pretty low. I go Dragapult. I just Hex it because if he goes to Clef or Gliscor, Hex is doing a lot. I do get a crit, but I don't think that exactly mattered with all the hazards up. It might have let the Ogre Pawn live with like 1% or something, but not the biggest deal. Hex again, U-turn on Clef. Excuse me, sorry. Uh, Clef is actually kind of annoying because now that I have water type on Skeledirge, I also don't want to get T-Wave. So I'm just going to my own Clef and going for like a little Clef war. I heal, he goes King Gambit. I don't know what set this is exactly. I know it's low kick, but it could still be Kowtow. So I go to my Dirge, kind of see what's going on. This forces him out. At this point, I don't know that he is actually faster than my Skeledirge, which is actually kind of scary. And I don't know that he's faster than Mandibuzz, so that affects my next plays. So I go for the Wisp, he goes Gliscor, makes sense. He's probably going to click U-turn here, but I have to go Clef, can't risk the Toxic. He goes back to King Gambit. I go Mandibuzz, I eat the low kick, so that reveals that he didn't change that set. He does reveal Iron Head here, which is kind of rough for me if I get flinched, but I don't mind risking and going for Roost. He does get the second flinch, which is, about right for the odds. I go for another Roost because I think he's just going to keep spamming it, but he actually goes for SD. At this point in my head, I'm thinking, okay, this thing could actually get carried away because it is faster than Mandibuzz, and I could lose to some Iron Head shenanigans kind of long term. So I decided to go for a knockoff and Mandibuzz and stay in here, because if I switch to Skeledirge on a low kick, there's a chance that I can get 2-hit KO'd after rocks coming in, so I would be at about 76%. Low kick does about 35%, and I don't want to risk that, so I kind of say, okay, I'm just going to sack Mandibuzz, I'm going to go for knock, hopefully that works. It doesn't, get flinched. At this point, it's a little tricky perhaps, but I think my best course of play is to go Dragapult and go for a Wisp on it, kind of new to this, and make sure that I basically win the game. He still can stall me out with his Gliscor, so I know he's not going to stay and attack me with his burn low kick, so I'm just going to heal here, get a free heal. I'm going to go Clef, and the set I stole from Professor Xavier is actually Sticky Barb knockoff. It's a Sword and Shield OU Clefable tech, and basically how this works is if you click knockoff on a Pokemon that does a physical attack, a contact move, and then they click that contact move versus you, they will take your Sticky Barb and lose HP every round. So first thing, first thing I want to do is I want to knock that off. Then I want to heal a bit, and I don't want him to. I don't want him to like. I don't know. I guess I just wanted to kind of not make it so obvious what my game plan was of going to Gliscor, then back to him on U-turn. But at this point, I don't want to waste too many Moonlights. I only got 4 left, so I do it. I get free Protect. Why not? He goes for U-turn as expected, and I just go back to Clef, and he takes the Sticky Bar. There's no like notice or anything, so you won't actually know until like you send your Pokemon in or you like hover over it and it says it has Sticky Barb. So here we're back to Clef Wars. Just spam Moonblast, spam Moonblast. Here I go for Moonblast and it's revealed, and I make a little comment about that. We were like kind of trolling in the all chat, so I was kind of joining in on that. So here I just go for free Moonblast, and at this point I want to make sure my Clef is healthy for a potential Dragonite that could be annoying, or like his own Clefable. So I just heal up to full, and I switch up back to my Gliscor because I can sit on this forever. Spikes has more PP, and he has to U-turn in order if it comes to a PP war. So then he's gonna bring something else into Gliscor, which works out for me. So I get my free Protect, U-turns. I just spam EQ on Clef. I get a little lucky here with the Earthquake here. I don't think it mattered in the long run. It just kind of sped the game up a little bit faster. He goes to Dragonite, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to Toxic this. Not going to play any games. It's actually Terra Poison, which you don't really expect ever from a Dragonite, but that's fine. I go for it anyways. I just EQ. I'm like, okay, maybe he's like E-Speed, Roost, Earthquake. Nope, he's Ice Spinner, I die. And I'm like, okay, this could get a little tricky. And this is actually a very pivotal turn. If I go for Will-O-Wisp on the Dragonite, because I eat basically any hit, then he goes Gliscor, and that gives him an opportunity to Toxic me or just U-turn on my Clef and then like do some other shenanigans and set up again. And then I don't want to like deal with taking rocks for Skeledirge and then EQs and all that and Encore potentially. So so I just go for a Torch Song. And as expected, he does go for the Gliscor move to go on Will-O-Wisp and then try to Toxic me. At this point, I just click Torch Song until I win. Maybe a little recover here or there. Doesn't really matter. And there. And then I won. GG's to Levers. I think this set might not have seemed close, but there are a lot of pivotal moves to make and very important close calls that really came down to, like, if I get this play right, I win the game. If I don't get this play right, he wins the game. So there were a lot of turns like that throughout these series. So even though it might have seemed like I won without much trouble, I definitely give credit to him, and I think he played that as well as he could have. Me knowing his team and what to expect from his HO team as well really helped me out. Thank you for listening.